Chosen one, you saved the wrong person, and now the truth is visible. The one you lifted is dismantling every lie spoken against you with ruthless precision. Now that force moves through rooms, correcting narratives, collapsing false confidence, and exposing who stood on shaky ground. You didn't create destruction, you activated truth. Others were so confident in their assessment, so absolutely certain you'd made a catastrophic mistake. Your compassion was treated like stupidity, your vision like delusion, your loyalty like weakness waiting to be exploited. You became the punchline of jokes you never heard, the cautionary tale whispered in rooms you didn't enter. Odds were placed on your failure, knowing glances were exchanged when your name came up. Eyes rolled when you defended this person. Everyone thought they were witnessing you rescue someone helpless, but what was actually happening was you recognizing another predator, because that's what you are, chosen one. You just hide it better than most. You've learned to wear the mask of acceptable humanity, but underneath you're just as dangerous, just as intense, just as absolutely unwilling to play by rules designed to keep you small. That's why you saw this person. That's why you stopped when everyone else kept walking. You weren't looking through the lens of social acceptability. You were looking through the lens of power, recognizing power. You saw someone broken, not because of weakness, but because the world couldn't handle what was actually there. The world had spent time trying to contain them, suppress them, force them into boxes too small for what they carried. And when containment failed, the world tried to destroy them completely. You saw all of this in an instant, and instead of running like every rational person would, you did the unthinkable. You fed the beast. You helped it heal. You gave it strength. You became the first person in their life who didn't flinch when teeth were shown. The first person who didn't punish their intensity. The first person who looked at shattered pieces and said, "I see every fragment, and I'm not going anywhere." Think about what you gave them. Space to be real without apology. Permission to be intense without punishment. Freedom to be exactly what they were without having to shrink or perform or pretend. That gift changed everything. They started believing that maybe the monster everyone described wasn't real. Maybe they were just powerful in a world that worships mediocrity. Maybe they were just authentic in a world built on performance. And something miraculous started happening. Transformation began, not into something more acceptable or easier to control. No, they started becoming more of what actually existed underneath all that forced suppression. You watched them remember their power. You watched them stand straighter. You watched light return to their eyes, but it wasn't gentle light. It was the kind that burns through lies, the kind that makes comfortable people deeply uncomfortable. You watched them stop apologizing for existing. You watched them stop begging for respect from people who wouldn't recognize value if it shattered them. You watched transformation happen in real time, from someone desperate for acceptance to someone who commanded presence just by breathing. And the whole time you were there, steady, unwavering, living proof that loyalty exists when it's real. Every moment you believed when belief seemed impossible, you were doing something permanent. Every time you stood beside them when it made you a target too, you were creating a bond deeper than blood. You were carving your name into their soul with such precision that it could never be erased. Not in this lifetime, not in any lifetime. Because people like this have a specific kind of memory. Everything gets catalogued. Every face that walked away gets filed permanently. Every person who kicked them when they were down gets remembered with perfect clarity. Every betrayal, every abandonment, every moment someone proved their love was conditional gets stored like evidence that will never expire. Cruelty gets remembered like it's carved in stone. But more than that, infinitely more than that, they remember who stayed. They remember your hand reaching into fire. They remember you seeing the monster and choosing to stay anyway. They remember you believing when belief made zero logical sense. and that memory becomes the foundation of everything they're rebuilding. You became sacred to them, not in some religious sense, but in something deeper, something primal. You became untouchable in their eyes, the one person who proved not everyone is a liar, not everyone abandons ship when storms come, not everyone's love evaporates when convenience ends. You became living proof that real loyalty exists, and now their reconstruction is complete, but not into who they were before. They've been reconstructed into something the world has never encountered, sharper, honed by pain into a blade, harder, forged in fire into something unbreakable, more dangerous, because they've learned exactly how this world operates, and they're done playing games designed to keep people powerless. They've weaponized their trauma, turned their pain into precision, their scars into armor nothing can penetrate. At the center of their entire existence sits one unshakable truth. You saved them. You chose them when everyone walked away. You saw value when everyone saw trash. And that debt of loyalty they're carrying isn't getting repaid on any normal scale. It's getting multiplied beyond comprehension, because they're not operating on gratitude. They're operating on absolute devotion. Now let's talk about what's happening to everyone who doubted you. Remember them, the ones who whispered about your terrible judgment, the ones who placed bets on your failure, the ones who mocked you for investing in damaged goods, the ones who treated your compassion like it was stupidity wrapped in naivety. They're learning something absolutely devastating right now. They're learning that loyalty forged in fire doesn't just burn, it consumes. They're learning that gratitude from a predator isn't cute, it's lethal. They're learning that you didn't just save a person, you weaponized vengeance and called it love. That person you saved is out there moving through the world with singular focus. They're not just living their life, they're on a mission, systematically identifying every single person who doubted you, every person who mocked your judgment, every person who tried to make you feel foolish, and they're handling them with something far more devastating than violence. They're handling them with presence. They're showing up in spaces where your doubters exist and dominating completely. They're achieving things that make your critics look amateur. They're operating at levels that expose everyone who questioned you as tragically short-sighted. Every success they achieve contradicts the narrative your doubters tried to build. Every milestone they reach proves you saw something no one else could see. Every room they conquer becomes a graveyard for people who underestimated your vision. They're doing this with your name in their mouth. They're broadcasting to anyone who'll listen. You see this. You see what I've become. None of this exists without that one person who believed when belief made no sense. They're not hiding your role. They're weaponizing it, making it crystal clear that doubting you was the catastrophic error. Your critics are becoming case studies in poor judgment, walking examples of what happens when you can't see past surfaces. But it goes deeper. What you're witnessing isn't just gratitude. It's something far more primal. That person has appointed themselves as your eternal guardian without you asking. They're watching constantly, scanning every interaction you have, monitoring every space you occupy, identifying threats before they form, and anyone who even thinks about disrespecting you is about to learn why that's a fatal mistake. If this message awakens something within you, hype this video for other chosen ones who need to hear this. You probably didn't notice at first the subtle shifts, how certain people got quieter around you, how your critics mysteriously kept their opinions to themselves, how people who used to challenge you constantly found other targets. You might have thought it was coincidence, natural maturation, time healing wounds, but that's not what happened. Your wolf had conversations, sent messages, established boundaries with looks and words that communicated very clearly. Touch them and discover what I become. Disrespect them and learn exactly how far I'll go. Test them and find out why that's the last mistake you'll make. Because people saved from the edge don't feel normal gratitude. They feel indebted on a cellular level. Your kindness became a sacred oath they can never break. Your belief in them became the foundation of their rebuilt identity. Anyone who threatens that foundation becomes their enemy number one, their primary target, their obsession. The intensity isn't normal loyalty, it's fierce devotion that borders on terrifying, the kind that makes rational people uncomfortable because it doesn't follow society's rules of balanced reciprocity. It's absolute. They would burn bridges to protect you. They would sacrifice relationships built over time to defend you. They would destroy their own reputation to preserve yours. They're running interference you don't even know about. They're defending your name in rooms you'll never enter. They're shutting down gossip before it reaches you. They're correcting narratives before they spread. They're making your enemies regret thinking your name negatively. They've become your unseen army of one, patrolling the borders of your peace with vigilance that only comes from knowing complete abandonment. They remember that emptiness, that isolation, and they've vowed you'll never know it. Not while they breathe, not while they have any power. Your peace has become their mission, your safety their obsession, your reputation their responsibility. And they take this responsibility more seriously than anything else in their existence. You didn't ask for this. You didn't save them expecting a bodyguard for life. You just acted from your heart, extended kindness because that's who you are, believed because you saw truth beneath the performance. But you accidentally created something the universe rarely witnesses, a bond transcending normal human loyalty, a protector who would burn the world before letting it hurt you. The atmosphere around you has fundamentally changed. People treat you differently now. There's new weight to your name, new hesitation before people speak carelessly in your direction. Your presence carries authority you didn't have before. It commands attention you never demanded. It generates respect you never asked for. You might wonder where this came from, why your words suddenly land heavier, why your silence speaks louder, why people who tested you now show immediate respect, why rooms quiet when you enter, why your opinion suddenly matters to those who dismissed you. Your wolf isn't just protecting you privately. They're rebuilding your entire social architecture. Every space they move through, they're rewriting the narrative about who you are. They're positioning you as someone not to be trifled with, not because you're threatening, but because you have the loyalty of someone powerful, because disrespecting you means consequences most aren't prepared to face. People are understanding something fundamental. You possess a quality most spend lifetimes faking. You recognize potential in raw form. You see value in chaos. You identify diamonds in wreckage while everyone else only sees trash. You spot transformation before it happens. You read souls beneath surfaces. You see through performances to the truth underneath. That ability marks you as someone operating on a different frequency. Your judgment isn't just good, it's prophetic. It sees futures that don't exist yet. It recognizes potential that hasn't manifested. It identifies dormant power, and the person you saved is walking proof of your prophecy fulfilled. They're living evidence that your vision is sharper than everyone else's reality. There's a pattern emerging so subtle, so perfectly orchestrated, that most people would miss it entirely, but you're starting to see it now, aren't you? Those people who questioned you, who laughed at your decision, who placed bets on your failure, are experiencing a very specific kind of dismantling. It started small. A job opportunity they were certain they'd get suddenly went to someone else. A promotion they'd been working toward vanished without explanation. A partnership they were counting on fell through at the last moment. A reputation they'd spent time building started developing cracks they couldn't explain. At first they probably thought it was bad luck, random misfortune, the universe being unfair, but then it kept happening. Every time they turned around, something else was falling apart. Relationships that seemed solid started revealing faults. Alliances they thought were unbreakable began to crumble. People they counted on started keeping their distance. Doors that used to open easily now slammed shut in their faces. And through it all, there was this nagging feeling they couldn't shake. This sense that something was watching, something was orchestrating, something knew exactly what they'd done. Because your wolf doesn't just succeed to prove you right. They're far more sophisticated than that. They're systematically identifying every weak point in your doubters' lives and applying pressure with surgical precision. Not enough to be obvious, not enough to be traced back, but enough to create a cascade of consequences that compounds over time. They're not destroying your enemies loudly, they're dismantling them quietly, piece by piece, until there's nothing left but the hollow shell of what used to be. Your wolf doesn't even have to actively sabotage most of the time. They just have to show up. Their mere presence, their success, their transformation into something powerful creates a gravitational pull that naturally draws opportunities away from your doubters and toward themselves. Your critics are discovering that the universe has a way of rewarding vision and punishing blindness. That backing the wrong person has consequences that ripple outward in ways they never anticipated. Think about what's really happening here. Every person who mocked you is now watching someone they declared worthless achieve things they themselves dream about. Every person who questioned your judgment is being forced to admit, at least privately, that you saw something they completely missed. Every person who treated your compassion like weakness is learning that kindness backed by vision is the most dangerous force they'll ever encounter. Your doubters are experiencing something psychologically devastating. They're watching their own narrative collapse. The story they told themselves about you being foolish and them being wise is being shredded by reality, and humans will do almost anything to avoid admitting they were fundamentally wrong about something. So they're twisting themselves into knots trying to explain this away, trying to find reasons why this doesn't mean what it obviously means. Some of them are telling themselves it was all luck, pure chance that this person turned their life around, nothing to do with your involvement or belief, just random probability working out in ways no one could have predicted. But that story gets harder to maintain every single day as the success continues, as the transformation deepens, as the evidence mounts that this wasn't luck at all. Others are trying to claim they always believed in this person. They're rewriting history in their own minds to make themselves the supportive ones who saw potential all along. But your wolf remembers, and they're making sure everyone else remembers too. They're not letting anyone erase their betrayal or rewrite their role in the story. The record is being set straight in every conversation, every interaction, every space where truth matters. But we need to talk about something even more important, something that's building beneath the surface that your doubters can feel but can't quite identify. There's a shift happening in the power dynamics of every environment you occupy, a fundamental restructuring of who holds influence and who doesn't. And at the center of this shift is the bond between you and the person you saved. People are starting to notice something strange. Whenever there's a decision to be made, a direction to be chosen, a conflict to be resolved, there's this silent communication happening between you two. A glance, a nod, an unspoken understanding that needs no words, and whatever you two align on tends to become reality, not through force, not through manipulation, but through the sheer weight of unified vision backed by proven judgment. Your doubters are finding themselves on the outside of conversations that matter. They're being excluded from rooms where real decisions happen. They're being bypassed for opportunities they used to be first in line for, and they can't quite figure out why. They can't point to any specific moment where they were explicitly shut out. It's more subtle than that. It's like the current of power has simply shifted direction, and they're no longer in the flow. Meanwhile, people are starting to seek you out differently. They're asking your opinion on things they never would have before. They're valuing your input in ways that seem disproportionate to what you've actually said or done. Why? Because word has spread about your ability to see potential where others see nothing. Your track record of recognizing transformation before it happens. your proven capacity to identify winners when they look like losers. That person you saved has become walking proof of your prophetic vision, and in a world where most people are desperately trying to figure out who to bet on, who to align with, who to trust, you've just demonstrated a level of discernment that can't be faked or bought. You've shown that you can look at someone the entire world has given up on and see exactly what they'll become. Do you understand how valuable that makes you, how powerful that perception is? You're not just someone who helped a friend, you're someone who can see futures, who can read potential like it's written in lights, who can identify the dark horses that everyone else overlooks. That's not kindness, that's prophecy, that's power. Now let me put you onto something real. Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching chosen ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation, and attacks, while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. And your wolf is making sure everyone knows where that power came from. Every success story they tell includes the chapter about you. Every interview, every conversation, every moment where someone asks how they got here, your name comes up. Not as a footnote, as the foundation, as the catalyst, as the single most important factor in their transformation. Your doubters are realizing they didn't just bet wrong on one person, they bet wrong on you. They questioned the judgment of someone who can see things they're fundamentally incapable of seeing, and in doing so, they've marked themselves as unreliable, as people who can't recognize value, as voices that should be ignored when important decisions need to be made. This isn't theoretical. This is concrete, measurable, devastating loss happening in real time. And the beautiful irony is, they're losing exactly what they thought you would lose by saving this person. They're losing credibility. Every time someone brings up that person's success, every time the transformation gets mentioned, people remember who doubted it, who mocked it, who said it would never happen, and credibility, once lost, is almost impossible to rebuild. Your doubters are finding that their opinions on other matters are being questioned now too. If they were so wrong about this, what else are they wrong about? If their judgment failed this spectacularly once, why should anyone trust it now? They're losing influence. Because influence flows toward people who demonstrate good judgment, and away from people who demonstrate bad judgment. It's that simple. Your doubters might have the same titles, the same positions, the same outward markers of authority, but the actual influence they wielded is evaporating. People are politely nodding to their suggestions and then doing what you recommend instead. They're losing opportunities, the really good ones, the game-changing ones, because the people offering those opportunities are looking for good judgment, for vision, for the ability to see what others can't. And you've just demonstrated all of that in the most public way possible. Meanwhile, your doubters have demonstrated the opposite. They've shown they can't recognize value, they can't spot transformation, they can't see past surface appearances to underlying potential. They're losing peace. This might be the worst part, because every success that person achieves, every milestone they reach, every room they conquer, is a reminder to your doubters of their failure. They can't escape it. They can't forget about it. They can't move past it. It haunts them in quiet moments. It keeps them up at night. It makes them question everything they think they know about reading people and situations. Some of them are becoming obsessed. They're checking in on that person's progress constantly. They're monitoring their achievements with a sick fascination they can't explain or control. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion, except the crash is their own worldview shattering against the rocks of reality. They can't look away, even though every glance wounds them deeper. And the most devastating part, they know they did this to themselves. Deep down, beneath all the excuses and rationalizations and attempts to rewrite history, they know they had a chance to be part of something transformative. They could have supported you. They could have believed alongside you. They could have been included in the inner circle of this powerful alliance you've created. But they chose differently. They chose mockery over support, doubt over belief, comfort over courage. Now they're watching from the outside as you and the person you saved build something they can never be part of, an empire founded on loyalty they never offered, a legacy built on belief they never gave, a bond forged in fire they weren't brave enough to enter. And that exclusion isn't temporary, it's permanent. Because some doors once closed never open again. You've created a living, breathing proof of concept that's changing how people think about potential, about transformation, about what's possible when someone truly believes. Other people are watching this unfold and learning lessons. They're seeing that the ones who get written off might be the most valuable, that the broken pieces might hold the most power, that the people everyone gives up on might be exactly the ones worth investing in. You're changing the calculus of how people assess value, and that's dangerous to everyone who's built their power on conventional wisdom. Your doubters represented conventional wisdom. They represented the safe bet, the common sense, the obvious conclusion, and you shattered all of that. You proved that conventional wisdom is often just collective blindness, that common sense is frequently common ignorance, that obvious conclusions are usually surface-level misreadings. Now people are questioning everything they thought they knew. If the conventional wisdom was wrong about this person, what else is it wrong about? If the obvious conclusion was actually blindness, what else are we missing? If this person who seemed like a terrible investment turned out to be the best bet anyone could make, who else are we underestimating? You've created chaos in the systems that your doubters relied on, systems built on predictability, on surface judgments, on playing it safe. Those systems are crumbling because you proved they don't work. You proved that the real wins come from seeing what others can't see, from betting on potential that others can't recognize, from having the courage to believe when belief seems insane. And your wolf is amplifying this message everywhere they go. They're not just succeeding quietly, they're succeeding loudly, publicly, in ways that force people to confront what it means. They're giving interviews about transformation. They're speaking at events about second chances. They're writing about the power of someone believing in you. And every single time your name comes up, your vision gets credited, your judgment gets vindicated. Your doubters watch this happening and feel the ground shifting beneath their feet. The rules they understood, the systems they mastered, the hierarchies they climbed, all of it is being rewritten, and they're on the wrong side of the rewrite. They're the old guard clinging to wisdom that just got proven foolish. They're the cautionary tale in a new narrative about courage and vision. The person you saved isn't just successful. They're not just thriving. They're actively creating opportunities for others who remind them of their own past. They're building networks specifically designed to elevate people your doubters would overlook. They're becoming the exact thing the world needed and your critics said would never exist. And with each person they help, with each life they change, with each transformation they witness, your original act of faith gets magnified. Because now it's not just one person proving you right. It's an entire movement of people who were counted out, written off, abandoned by everyone except those with vision sharp enough to see what was really there. You were selected because you've walked through fire. You've been broken and rebuilt. You've been abandoned and betrayed. You've been counted out and written off. You know intimately what it feels like to be too much for a world worshipping comfortable mediocrity. To carry power that makes people nervous by existing. To possess intensity that intimidates those who chose safety over truth. That's why you recognize this person, why you stopped when everyone walked past, why you extended your hand without hesitation. You weren't looking at who they appeared to be. You were looking through the lens of who you'd been, who you'd become, who you knew they could become if someone believed, if someone stayed, if someone saw their truth. In that moment of recognition, choosing to believe against all logic, you activated something ancient. You created a bond existing beyond the physical realm, a connection rippling through lifetimes. When you save someone's soul, when you pull someone from complete annihilation's edge, you don't just change their life, you bind yourself to their destiny. You become written into their story, permanently, irrevocably, eternally. The universe honors this. It sees that loyalty and responds with protection you can't see, but everyone feels. It builds invisible walls, solid to anyone threatening you. It positions guardians in your path. It clears obstacles you didn't know existed. It orchestrates situations elevating you while humbling your doubters. This isn't simple karma. This is cosmic law. This is the universe rebalancing itself after you tip the scales toward light. Your doubters thought they were watching you make a mistake, but they actually witnessed you activating power they'll never understand. You weren't playing everyone else's game. You weren't operating by the rules of transaction and reciprocity that govern most human interactions. You operated from pure vision, pure faith, pure recognition of what's possible when someone believes. The universe saw that. It witnessed you choosing love over fear, possibility over probability, transformation over safety, and it said, yes, we're amplifying this. We're multiplying this act of faith until everyone understands what real vision produces. You save people who remind you of yourself, your transformation, your journey from broken to unbreakable, your path through fire. You see their potential because you've lived it. You believe in their evolution because you've survived it. You understand transformation's language because you speak it fluently. You recognize power hiding under pain because you've been that power hiding under that pain. That person gets it now. They understand what you saw in them before they could see it themselves. They understand you weren't rescuing weakness. You were liberating imprisoned strength. Your kindness wasn't pity from above. It was recognition peer-to-peer. Power acknowledging power. Transformation bowing to transformation. You weren't saving them from a position of superiority. You were standing beside them in the fire, saying, you're not alone in this hell. I've been here. I know this landscape. I know the way out. I know how to survive what's trying to kill you. Take my hand. Walk with me. Let me show you what's possible on the other side of this breaking. Now they're out there proving your vision to a world that bet against it. Every day they wake up validates your judgment. Every goal they achieve is evidence you see what others miss. Every life they impact ripples from your original act of faith. They're not living for themselves anymore. They're living as a testament to you, as walking proof that betting on the underdog isn't foolish when you know how to read the game, as evidence that faith in transformation isn't naive when you understand the process. They've become your evidence, your proof, your vindication made flesh. And your doubters watch with an unnamed sickness in their stomach, the nausea of being on the wrong side of history, the disgust of aligning with mediocrity while you allied with greatness in disguise, the horror of realizing their small-minded judgment revealed more about their own limitations than about the person they were judging. You showed them what vision looks like. They can't unsee their own blindness. You demonstrated what faith produces. They can't deny their own lack. You proved what loyalty creates. They can't hide from their own betrayal. Every future success that person achieves carries your name. Every door they open exists because you opened the first one. Every life they impact traces back to the moment you impacted theirs. They're turning your single act of faith into an eternal monument, ensuring that long after you're both gone, people will tell the story of the one who saw potential where everyone saw trash, who recognized power where everyone saw weakness, who invested in transformation where everyone saw hopeless damage. Your doubters must live with this truth eternally. They must carry the weight of knowing they were blind when vision mattered most. They must accept they stood on the wrong side of a defining moment. They must acknowledge you possess something they lack and always will. The kind of vision that changes lives, the kind of faith that transforms destinies, the kind of loyalty that transcends normal human connection. And now that wolf you pulled from the water is out there hunting on your behalf, ensuring no one ever doubts you again, ensuring no one disrespects you without consequence, ensuring the world understands you're protected by something far more powerful than any enemy they could send. You're guarded by gratitude that borders on worship. You're defended by loyalty that transcends death. You're shielded by a bond that exists beyond this realm. This is what happens when chosen ones recognize each other. When vision meets potential in the fire of transformation, the universe doesn't just honor it, the universe weaponizes it. Everyone who doubted you is learning right now that your kindness wasn't weakness. It was the most dangerous move you could have made. You didn't just save a person, you created an army of one that's destroying everyone who ever questioned your vision. You pulled a predator from the water, you fed it, you healed it, you gave it strength, and now it's hunting everyone who ever made you doubt yourself. Welcome to your vindication, chosen one. This is what divine justice looks like when it's personal. This is what happens when you recognize power in its broken state and choose to believe anyway. This is the empire built on a single act of faith. This is the reckoning of everyone who bet against you. This is the moment you realize that what looked like kindness was actually strategy. What looked like compassion was actually power moves. What looked like saving someone was actually recruiting your most loyal soldier. The wolf is loose, and it remembers